I've been muted this whole time. Oh my god. Oh my god. I talked for like 5 minutes and I oh my god. Oh my gosh, I went through like half of the show already. And I know you guys were like, Jessica, you're muted. I actually didn't realize it until Mark called me. And I was like, wait, he would only be calling if something was going wrong. You would think that I'm an amateur, like I haven't been doing this for, a couple of years. But man. All right. Well, anyways, I'll go back over like literally everything that I just said. Quite literally everything that I just said. The one thing that I do know is that you guys are like actually watching. So that's cool. Because you guys actually want to hear what I have to say. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Back to the beginning. So fuck my life. Okay. All right, so now I'm like, where was I? Okay, so that was really like full like 10 minutes that I was talking. Hold on, something else is not right here. Hold on. Let me press this. That's going. Just making sure we're live. You can see me. Okay, cool. So yeah, like let me see. Just making sure you guys can see me and hear me fine. Okay, anyways. We're going to be talking about Mikel Merino going to Bayern Munich, the ripple effect, the domino effect from that. We were just talking about a couple of days ago, Eze versus Olise. That doesn't matter anymore because Mikel Merino has gone to Bayern. But now that everybody, people that were looking at Olise, now that he's no longer an option, they will start looking elsewhere. So that, is players like Pedro Neto and Nico Williams, and that affects Arsenal because we are interested in both players. So we'll talk about that. Nico Williams versus Eze. Eze has become a more concrete target. A more concrete target over the last like couple of days. So I do want to talk about that. Let's see. I'm just making sure that you guys can see. I can't see the chat from there, but people are like trying to read your lips. I was basically just saying that, like, yeah, that will affect us. Nico, the Mikel Merino transfer will affect us because of Nico Williams and Pedro Neto being the only other like really, really good options that we could be looking at. And then everybody else will start looking at those options as well. Nico Williams played really well against Italy, better than he played against Croatia. And so I think Arsenal fans are back on board with him. And so Arsenal are also looking at Eze. And could it be the case that we're looking at Eze or Nico Williams? Could it be both? An amazing summer would be both, but know your club. Our club, I would be very surprised if we got both. Or if we went after both, but that would be great. And I want you guys to vote on the poll that's going right now on which one would you prefer. I didn't do both because I know if I put both up there, you guys would say both. So I want you guys to vote and let me know who you guys prefer, Nico Williams or Eze. And we'll kind of go through the financial aspect of things because both would require almost like a release clause. And so that changes the game a little bit because when you're just paying in installments, you can do multiple signings and kind of like, how in real life, when you buy things on credit, you can do a little bit more because you don't have to pay everything up front. When we have to pay everything up front, you probably don't get to get as many things, so that's going to change whether or not Arsenal are, I think, able to do both. But do Arsenal need both? I put that out there on Twitter and people were saying, well, why would you need both? And I have a reason why I feel like both would be perfect. Mikel Merino has come to the forefront as an option for Arsenal in midfield. Now, I'm going to keep it like all the way 100 with you guys. I don't know that much about him. I'm hungry. I just realized. I don't know a ton about him. I know that he played for Newcastle for a little bit. I know he's at Real Sociedad now. He's like 28. I think he's like recently always been in the Spanish national team, but not really been like a starter. And so I'm not even going to sit here and like pretend like I know everything about him, but we can talk about him. You guys can let me know what you know about him. Is that a player that you'd want to see at Arsenal in that like left 8 position? And then Gyokeres, I think Fabrizio Romano said on one of his more like recent videos that Gyokeres is a concrete possibility for Arsenal if they were to go after a striker. Now, there's been some like weird reports coming out of Portugal that Arsenal are in like final negotiations for Gyokeres, and Jorge Mendes is acting as like a median between like Arsenal and Porto, or Arsenal and Sporting. Like, although I don't deny that like I could see Jorge Mendes being involved, especially because Jorge Mendes was involved in the Fabio Vieira deal, and that came out of nowhere. I just feel like if we were really going after a £100 million striker, everybody would know about it. And so, Gyokeres is being linked to Arsenal. I don't know how real it is, even though Fabrizio Romano is saying that it's a concrete possibility. The one thing I will say is that watching Germany play against Switzerland yesterday, that was a great game. I really enjoyed it. Xhaka played really well, but there was a lot of criticism around Havertz. Now, there's always going to be criticism around Havertz because he's an Arsenal player, and Chelsea fans are the most chronically online fan base I've ever seen. And so no matter what Arsenal player is playing, it's always their fault why they're not winning, why that team's not winning. That being said, I don't think Havertz had the best game. I don't think Germany had the best game overall. But one thing that, we kind of been saying over and over again is like, the reason why it's okay to have Havertz as your starting number 9 is because you have Füllkrug for Germany. You have a true number 9 that you can bring off of the bench that's going to score those clutch goals if the all-arounder approach doesn't work, having like somebody like Havertz up front. The problem that Arsenal have is that the next guy up is Jesus, who also offers pretty much like he offers less of an opportunity to score goals than Havertz does. And then the next guy below that is Nketiah. And so can Arsenal afford to go into next season without a traditional number 9 at least backing up Havertz? Can we afford that? Because there are games that, remind Arsenal have had games like Germany did yesterday. And it was kind of like the same thing. We didn't have somebody to bail us out. And so can we afford it? I don't know. I don't know. And I want to talk to you guys about it because as much as I want to believe that we can go into next season with Havertz and Jesus as our options, we're always going to get the best version of Havertz where Jesus is going to come back into form. My gut is telling me that we're going to have more of those games that we had against Aston Villa away, Newcastle away, West Ham at home, where everybody is just fluffing their lines. Nobody looks confident in front of goal. There is no clinical finishing, and there's nobody there to bail us out. And so, I think it's something to consider. I think it's something to consider. Now, let's read the chat and see what some of you guys are saying. All right, you guys hate my voice, and I do too, so let me stop. Diddy Biggs says, thank you so much for your super chat, by the way. It says, we can't hear you, Jess. I just wanted to read that out because it was a super chat. Thank you so much for letting me know that. Iman says, Havertz wasn't great, but neither was the rest of the Germany team. I agree with that. That's exactly what I said. I was like, nobody was good, so it wasn't just Havertz, but I think the fact remains the same is that when you play with Havertz, there are going to be games where he can't bail you out because he's just not that clinical guy. And it was kind of like, oof, Havertz missed those same kind of opportunities that Füllkrug put away right away. And so, not having that clinical number 9 is a problem that Arsenal has, that it doesn't feel like they're looking to fix. And that's something that I'm not sure that we can go into next season with. Just my opinion. 11 says still need another different option. And Burmy says Havertz and Jesus are not enough. We need another center forward and or a winger to complete our attack. And the other thing about that is that, we could get a Nico Williams, we could get, Eze, but I still feel like you need, like, they could probably add goals. Like, Nico Williams he's more of a Doku type, in my opinion, that's going to facilitate more opportunities for the guys around him. So he's good at creating chances. He's good 1v1. He's tricky, and Doku is like that, but Doku doesn't score a lot of goals. But Man City have Haaland, so it doesn't really matter. Arsenal don't have that, so even with the winger that we want to bring in, they're not really going to 100% help with that. And so, yeah, the number 9 just keeps, like, it's still in the back of my mind as an opportunity for Arsenal to, like, really bridge the gap between us and City. It does feel like it needs to be a striker. And the thing is football can be very, very simple at times. We may think it's left 8 and, wants the balance on the left-hand side and an overlapping fullback and, this type of winger. And once, Odegaard moves to the left-hand side and we have Timber back and he's inverting from the right and, blah, 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 then everything will be perfect. It could just be the case that we just need somebody that the opposition are actually afraid of in the final third. Could just be the case that we need to be able to score goals when games are tight. Could just be the case that instead of missing so many early chances in the first 15 minutes of games, that if we were just put 1 or 2 chances away early, the game would be done. So it could just be that simple sometimes, but I think the story of Arsenal under Mikel Arteta can sometimes be, although there's a lot of improvement, we have a lot of great players, that we kind of overcomplicate things at times. And maybe if Arsenal just buy a striker, it'll solve some of our problems, but that's just me, like, speaking off the top of the dome, could be wrong. Aman says, I would be happy with either Neto or Williams. Boy says, Eze doesn't improve us. He will be a rotation option. Well, okay, so here we go. Let's really get into it. So yeah, let's really get into it. Let's roll it back. The Eze thing. So Eze versus Nico Williams. I want to look at the chat now and see. Let's see what you guys are saying. Because I want to actually see the poll first before we actually get into it. 53% says Williams, 47% says Eze. So with Eze, the reports are saying that Arsenal are interested in Eze. He's very well liked by everybody at the club. He is seen as a left mid / left wing. And so Arsenal are interested, but it kind of like, it depends on the fee, because he has like a weird kind of contract where even though it's like not like a standard release clause, they do want a lot of that money up front. Crystal Palace. And so Arsenal loves Eze and view him as somebody that can play left wing or left 8, which is what I said. And Palace want 50 million of the 60 million clause paid up front. So that's a lot of money, as much as it doesn't feel like a lot of money because people are going for 100 million, 75 million. It seems like a lot more expensive. Or more people are going for bigger fees. When you have to pay it almost all up front, that changes the game. It really does. And so when you look at Nico Williams, that has like a 50 million pound release clause, and Eze also has something quite similar, you're probably going to have to make a decision. Eze for me is a better version, don't shoot me, but a better version of Emile Smith-Rowe. Emile Smith-Rowe, as much as I know we all love him, and we feel like if he just got playing time, if he just got a chance, he would be just as good as blank, 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 and blank. But the reality is that Eze at this moment in time is better than Emil. I think he could come straight into the team and start, where we still have a lot of questions around Emil. Now, they're different ages. Eze is 26, or he's about to be 26, which is crazy because for the longest, I was like, oh, he's young coming. No, he's Eddie and them's age. He's older than Eddie. Like, it's crazy, right? So he's already like proven in the league. He's, he's better than Emil. I'm just going to be fucking for real, and maybe if things were different with Emil, we could say that, he's better, but right now it feels like Eze is just more developed. And so he would kind of be more like an Emil replacement because those are the positions that Emil plays. He would lessen the need to get somebody like a Nico Williams or Bakayoko or more like somebody like a Nico Williams that plays on the left, more likely, because it's like Jesus can still play on the right, and you'd have left wing covered. So if Martinelli couldn't play there, you don't want to play Trossard there, it's fine. So you have that versatility. You have somebody that can play on the wing that offers a different look, but can also play like left 8, whatever. My only thing with Eze is just like, I'm not sure that we need to be going into the versatility route right now. We have a lot of players that can already do a lot of things. We spoke about at the end of last show, specialists versus jack of all trades. We have a lot of jack of all trades. We lack specialists. I think we came down to it that we felt like only Fabio Vieira was a true specialist. And so maybe if we have another player that specializes in carrying the ball, scoring goals, and creativity, that would in the left 8 position or at winger, it would be better than having somebody that's going to bounce between the two positions. And I'm not sure that Eze is like the perfect wing option for us. When we look at the winger position that we have right now, we have kind of like a lot of creative forwards that can kind of play that position. Don't we need somebody that can hold the width? Is Eze really somebody that can hold the width? So it's kind of like he solves left wing, but not really. And that's kind of the problem that we already have with Trossard, the problem that we already have with Vieira, the problem that we have with ESR is that they can all kind of cover that position, but are they perfect for it? No. And so, but yeah, that's my only thing about Eze is that if he's coming in to bounce between those two positions, he doesn't necessarily solve it the way that a Nico Williams or a Pedro Neto will. And I think Arsenal need to focus on specialists, a winger that is a winger and a midfielder that's a midfielder, instead of getting somebody who bops between two positions, because we already kind of have that. Now, in terms of like, is Eze on the levels? Yes, I think he is on the levels. I think he does make us better. I think he does have that star quality. I think he does have the ability to change games. So I'm probably about 75% make it happen, 25% I have questions. But I think in general, as long as you bring in talented players, you're kind of fine. I think kind of like at the end of the day, as long as you bring in talent, probably fine, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. But Eze versus Nico Williams, I think, does become like, do you want a specialist or do you want a versatile player? And if you were to bring in the winger, do you trust Fabio Vieira and or Emil Smith-Rowe to step up next season to be that additional number 10 figure in the team that's going to add more creativity or goals when we need it from midfield? That's where the question really lies. If you don't trust Emil Smith-Rowe and Fabio Vieira and you feel like we need a number 10, then you'll probably veer towards Eze because he can cover wing, but he gives you another option in midfield that you could probably trust a little bit more. If you feel okay with Fabio Vieira and Emil Smith-Rowe, you don't feel like we need that, then you'll probably go towards Nico Williams because he's more of like the winger that we truly need because he's actually a winger. So yeah, and we know that Arteta, one thing that he does struggle with is adapting his tactics to the players that he has, which is why like Trossard is like horrendous on the wing. And like when Fabio Vieira plays on the wing, or even like you switch Martinelli to the right-hand side, it feels clunky and it feels weird when it probably shouldn't be that bad. But his like literally his system is built around inverted wingers or wingers that play on the opposite side. Like Saka's left-footed play on the right, Martinelli's right-footed plays on the left, and they really hold the width and they stay wide and create opportunities centrally for the midfielders. And so that's why like the Trossards and those guys don't look good on the wing because they can't hold the width like that. Like they're not really those guys, right? And I'm not sure Eze is that guy either to hold the width and do the thing, but that's just me. Because when Eze plays, I feel like when Eze plays on the wing, he plays like a forward. Like he plays, or like a creative forward. He plays like Emile used to play on the wing. And Arteta has went fully away from that this season. So it's really interesting. But that's kind of, yeah. It's now people are switching to Eze. It's crazy. The poll just switched to Eze. I don't know if was it something I said or no, but let's see what you guys are saying. Comp says, I prefer Eze. Prem proven, among other things, is pro. 7 players alternatives we need to sign. Keylor Navas. Okay, you have like a million people on there. Basically I'm just gonna go with I prefer Eze. Pelza says, I've only been an Arsenal fan for 2 years because I liked watching it later age. Never liked it when I was younger. I saw Arsenal play and I fell in love with the club. Damn, Arteta's influence. Let's go. Dale says Eze would be our best free kick taker. Does Eze play winger for Palace? I just think it's again, I feel like people get really caught up in the actual position name. You can have a number 10 play on the wing. You can have a true winger play on the wing. You can have a striker play on the wing. We've seen it. Aubameyang's played on the wing. We've seen, somebody like Emile play on the wing. We've seen Martinelli play on the wing. I think it's all about what profile you want there. Cole Palmer is a 10. He plays on the wing. Bernardo Silva is not a winger, but he plays on the wing. And I think usually what happens is you get shunted out to the wing when people don't play with traditional number 10s anymore. It's a position that will come back into fashion, but has been cut out of the game. Like most positions are, the traditional number 9 is now coming back in style now, but for a while it was false 9s, right? And so I think what managers have been doing is to get the creativity in their team without sacrificing their defensive solidity. They put their number 10s on the wings. And so you see a Cole Palmer on the wing. You'll see a Foden on the wing. You'll see an Eze on the wing. None of them are actually wingers. They're number 10s. So they add creativity and they kind of come more central. But what they're not going to do, maybe Eze is a little bit different. I'm not 100% sure. But they're not going to hold the width and beat their man 1v1 over and over again like a Doku would or a Nico Williams, because they're actually wingers. And so it just depends on what you want. Some teams are okay with having one traditional winger and somebody more of a creative forward on the other side, which is fine. But, for me, it's not so much about the position name. It's the qualities and the characteristics that somebody brings to that position. You can both be center midfielders, but you can be completely different, and we know that, 100%. 2 number 8s can be completely different based on their characteristics, so it is what it is, right? And so with Eze, I think it depends on, I question whether or not he'd be a good option on the wing for us if Arteta completely took that option away from Emile. Like you said, Emile, his best position is not on the wing. So we're not going to play him there anymore. And I just think that Eze and Emile have very similar qualities in the way that they play football, the way that they want to exist within a team. And so if he didn't trust Emile there, maybe he would trust Eze there, but it goes against all the principles. It really does. So would he just play midfield? Maybe that's the case. Let's see. Michael Prince says, I will go for Eze over Nico because he loves Arsenal and would want to stay, whereas Nico may want to leave for Barca in 2 years, but for a winger, Nico is a better choice. Why not go for the better choice? If you think that Nico Williams is the better choice, why do we worry about the whole Barcelona thing? I don't know if I'm necessarily feeling I don't think is somebody being more loyal to the club more of a reason to buy them if they're not the right profile, because if you feel like Nico Williams is the better profile, I feel like we should go for the better profile. But I kind of get what you're saying. Philip says they are both poor choices. Dale says, you didn't answer my question. Let me rephrase. Would Arteta even consider Eze as his left winger? But that's what I was getting to is I don't know if Arteta would play him on the wing or if that would be like the one winger that we got. Arteta does tend to go after players that he feels like can play multiple positions. So Eze makes sense in that regard, but it doesn't make sense when you think about the way that Emile Smith-Rowe was taken out of that position. And because I feel like they're so similar, and it doesn't really solve the problem that we've had on the wings, which is we don't have somebody to replicate what Saka and Martinelli does. So when we have wingers come in, like if Jesus plays out there or Fabio Vieira or Trossard, we lose so much of our directness and our ability to create chances off the wing. So does Eze solve that? No. Does it make sense based on how Arteta's treated Emile and how he's made him play midfield only? No. But Arteta likes versatility. So yeah, if Eze were to come in, personally, I'd want him to just play midfield. But that's also where it then it really doesn't make sense, because do you see Arsenal paying 50 million up front for Eze and also 50 million or something like that for like a Pedro Neto? I don't know. I don't know. So I feel like Arsenal will be like more interested, because there's also another side to this that I'm going to get to in just a second. But know your club. If they spend 50 million up front for Eze, they're going to want that player to play multiple positions. And so that would, I think, take away the winger. But then does that solve our problems? Also, does Eze solve the issue of the right? Because we have left wing that I think most of us feel like needs a little bit of competition, a little bit more of maybe somebody different than Martinelli. Definitely, people want to get Trossard out of that position. So, you bring somebody that's going to play mostly on the left. You still don't have backup for Saka on the right unless you guys are okay with Jesus. And personally, I don't want Jesus on that wing as our main option if Saka can't play. That's probably an unpopular opinion, but I have my doubts. I genuinely have my doubts. So, yeah. But get in the chat. Let me know what you guys are thinking. But yeah, it feels like we're getting some more concrete options here. It feels like we're getting some more concrete links with Eze, Nico Williams. I see Pedro Neto is still kind of being spoken about. Those being the main ones. And so we're getting somewhere. It's just, who solves our problems the most? I think Nico Williams on paper solves our problems more. He solves the needing something different on the left and needing cover on the right. He solves that. Eze solves maybe a different problem of when we need to do something else in midfield. And Emile and Fabio Vieira really haven't really solidified themselves. You have somebody that can do that, but it leaves the wing exposed, so it just depends on what do you think is more important. And do you even feel like we should have to choose? Because I'm kind of at the point too where I'm like, listen, if we're really trying to bridge the gap between us and City, find a way to get somebody like Eze in and also find a way to get a winger in. If you're not going to get a striker, get both of them, so yeah. Nico says, Jess probably going to cook me for this, but I would sign Neto. I don't care. I'm not going to cook anybody for that. I totally understand what the Neto situation is all about. He, on paper, fits us more than Eze or Nico Williams does. The only reason why I don't talk about him as much is, one, because the links have gone a little bit cold. They've gotten a little bit cold, so we haven't had like an Ornstein confirmation or anything like that. It's like Arsenal have always liked Pedro Neto. Yeah, we know that. It's been 3 seasons now, or 3 summers now. So we know that, but we've not made a move, not a concrete one anyway. And so I just don't talk about him as much for that reason. But if it were not for the injuries, then we wouldn't be even having a conversation. If he didn't have these injuries, there would be no conversation. Give Wolves 60 million for Pedro Neto. He solves all of the problems. The directness the winger needs, the ability to be on both sides, to play on both sides. So to cover for Saka and maybe even to upgrade on Martinelli, unpopular opinion. I think he might just be an upgrade on Martinelli on that left-hand side. Then you also have somebody that's Premier League proven, right age, Arsenal fan, loves it, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if he didn't have the injuries, there wouldn't be a conversation. There really wouldn't be. At all. Terrence Tipp says, should we sign Eintracht Frankfurt striker some way? Wait, hold on. I'm not going to say it. Show me the money. Stop it. See, that's when I stopped. I was like, hold on. Stop. You almost got me. Modest says, Neto playing 10 games over 5 seasons probably wouldn't help us that much. And that's my main gripe with the Neto thing is there's a way of thinking about it. He'll be not be a starter, so that means naturally he won't get as injured. But I don't know if I agree. I feel differently. I feel somebody like that, no matter how many games they're playing, it may not be about being overplayed. It could just be you're crocked. And also, we should probably mention that, Kieran Tierney came back from the Euros and is back at Arsenal now. His loan from Real Sociedad is now over, and his Euros is now over. He had another injury. It looked terrible. It looked like another bad muscle injury for him. And so, it's really unfortunate for Kieran Tierney. As much as people think that I hate Kieran Tierney, I do not hate him. I love him to death. And I would love nothing more than for him to be fit. If he was fit, I wouldn't even have a problem with him being in the squad. I have, concerns about his ability to play the way that Mikel wants him to play. But I think he should be in, if he didn't have injuries, obviously he could do the Cedric role as somebody that just is in the squad that maybe doesn't play a lot, but we trust him to come in and do a job. Right. But my goodness, Tierney, it's not even a matter of being overplayed for him. He just cannot maintain fitness. And I feel very similar about Pedro Neto, is that it's not about being overplayed. It may be about being rushed back. Maybe that's an angle that can be delved into. But, I think some players, it's not really about being overplayed. It's just their muscles just cannot do it, and paying 60 million for a player that, if Saka were to get injured, we could play him once and then he's out it's the Tommy effect. It's Saliba gets injured, then Tommy gets injured right after. That is my biggest concern about Pedro Neto. But only our medical team would know whether or not, they could look at his injury issues and diagnose it as unlucky or somebody that's been overplayed and rushed back. So as long as we don't do that, we're fine, or somebody that we should steer clear of. I think the fact that we don't see concrete links and we're not gagging at the opportunity to sign him, I do feel like there's a little bit of this guy might just be crocked, and that's more what it is than anything. Martin N says, I feel sorry for KT. Exactly. It's not, listen, injuries are terrible for players. That's all they want to do is play football. Any athlete, that's all they want to do. So you have to imagine the mental state of a player like Kieran Tierney. You have to be a very strong individual to get hurt and come back, And so, this could also scupper any chances of us selling him, which, it is what I actually didn't have him down for a big sale anyway. So, it kind of is what it is. I think he'll go for free anyway. I might be wrong, but if he stays this season, he might go on a free the next summer, but I only had him down for 5 million or something like that, because if he went back to Celtic, they couldn't afford to spend a lot on him anyway. It might be a cancel contract situation. So yeah, I love Kieran Tierney. If he ends up having to stay, it is what it is. He got injured, but these kind of players, if you know it about them before they come, I do think you have to be really smart. And if Wolves are not really interested in a discount for Pedro Neto, I think we have to look in a different direction. Let's see. Yo-Yo says Tierney was signed injured, tired of the Scotsman. People really wanted him to be captain and thought he could talk to Robertson, silly gooners. Yeah, I mean, he came in with injury issues for sure. Aman says we won't get any decent money for KT now, kissing my teeth. So yeah, that's the thing with Pedro Neto, is I get Tierney vibes from him. And then, that's why I feel like Nico Williams has come to the forefront as a better option. Now, the main issue with Nico Williams is not really the release clause. It's getting him out of Spain and the wages. I do think that he kind of he feels like a player that is comfortable in Spain. Him and his brother are very comfortable at Bilbao, and why wouldn't they be? Spain is a beautiful place, and they're being paid a lot. Nico Williams being on £200,000 per week does create a little bit of a sticky situation, I think, for Arsenal in order to get him here, because ultimately when you go from club to club, I think most of the times you're looking to maintain the same wages that you have, but most likely you want bigger wages. And so he'd be coming in on similar wages as like our top earners. And I'm not sure that that's something that Arsenal would want to do, because it also would throw off the balance. You have somebody like Martinelli that would probably be looking at that shit like, okay, so what am I here for? And so as much as wage conversations are not fun to have, and I know that a lot of Arsenal fans are like, why does it matter? Just get the bench player, who cares? It does matter, because if you give wages to a player like Nico Williams like that, I do think you're throwing off the balance, where it's not like you're buying, it's not like you're getting Rodrigo or Vinny Jr. Those are players that I feel like if they wanted £200,000 per week or more, you give it to them because they're superstars. Nico Williams is on the cusp of being somebody that people are really talking about. Giving him more than £200,000 would be a little like sideways, So, that I think that's my main concern about the whole Nico Williams thing, is not that he wouldn't fit, not that he wouldn't make us better, not that he wouldn't be a good option, not any of those things, is the getting him out of Spain and the wages seem crazy, so you have Eze, that's going to cost, about a similar amount with release clause. We could probably get him for decent wages, the wages that he's on at Crystal Palace, we could probably get him for decent wages. It's just, is he the winger that you want? No, and then you have Nico Williams that is probably the winger that you want, but the wages, so they're not perfect, neither one of those. Pedro Neto is perfect, but injury prone. So I can see the situation that Arsenal are in. They're looking around for probably the one that has the least amount of red flags. Which one do you think has the least amount of red flags? Eze, Nico Williams, or Pedro Neto? You guys let me know. Philip says that touch and goal by Ukraine striker was the best goal of the tournament so far. Anyone else agree? Let's see. Yo-Yo says Leo and Georgie make peanuts based off of their contributions since joining, especially when compared to Martinelli and Partey. I would actually take Martinelli out and put Jesus in there. I think Jesus is probably the one that's earning least of his wages than Martinelli. Martinelli, at the very least, has had a superstar season for Arsenal in the time that he's been here. He's had one poor season where Jesus had maybe two, even if it was out of his control with injury. So I would actually take Martinelli out of that and put Jesus in the, contributions category, not really being up there with the what they're earning. Samuel says 250K wage is fair for Williams, but we have to get rid of a couple players to afford that. Also, I want to let you guys know that the poll is 50-50. So you guys are like very much so feeling both options. But when it comes to, the wage structure as well, I do think the wages also tell you what role the player is going to play in the team. Like Yo-Yo said, Jorginho and Trossard are earning peanuts compared to their contributions, but their wages indicate what they are. They're squad guys, they're squad players. Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka are being paid like superstars of the team. They're the highest earners next to Kai, Jesus, and Partey, and that's why I'm a big advocate of the wage structure reflecting your status in the team, because we are not in a position to have players on high wages that are not pulling their weight. And so Saka and Odegaard they contribute like starters, like star players. Kai Depends on who you ask. But if you put Nico Williams on those wages, what does that mean about Martinelli? Are we basically saying that Nico Williams is the starter? Because then I'm almost like okay with that, but that's also a conversation that would probably not need to be had, but it's something that I would be looking at. Bring in Nico Williams, you put him on £250,000 per week. Martinelli is on the bench. Period. He just is, So there's definitely that. And I'm okay with that, in terms of like, if you feel like Nico Williams is an upgrade, then fine, but then just know that within the next year or two, Martinelli is going to be asking to get out of here. Like, just know that for sure. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So Nico says Lukaku, swears some of our fan base don't deserve to see Arsenal succeed. If people are talking about Lukaku in the chat, we're desperate. Philip says Nico Williams is a clear non-rumor. I don't know if it's clear, but I think when people don't want a player, they tend to decide that the rumor is not true. When it's not just, it's Ornstein, it's Nicholas, James McNicholas. There's enough people that have spoken about Arsenal's interest in Nico Williams to make it at least something that is worth talking about, even if you don't want him or not, So yeah, Dale says Arsenal can't sign Neto. The who knew argument won't fly. Arsenal would look like idiots when he's out 20 matches. So yeah, I want to move on. I want to move on to the Mikel Merino thing. Y'all. Now listen. It was so funny. I don't know why, it just makes me chuckle. I think it's just because it came out of nowhere. And I'll give you guys my initial thoughts on this, and then what my gut feeling on it is. So basically, there are multiple reports coming out of Spain today that Arteta wants to sign Mikel Merino, whatever the cost. The coach had already contacted the player and was informed of the big plans at Arsenal, and the player is enticed with the opportunity to move to Arsenal. Sociedad could sell the player for 25 million euros, which is within Arsenal's reach. So I think also Arsenal's reach, we have to, this is probably not going to be a summer. I think this has been said multiple times. This is not going to be a summer of big expensive signings. I do think that we're in the 50 million, 60 million, 20 million range, so, and I'm, listen, would I prefer us go and just slap the money down for whoever we want, 200 million, boom, bam? Absolutely. But I know my club and I'm not stupid. There's always repercussions and consequences. When you go big one summer, the next summer, you're probably gonna have to be a little bit less, less liberal with how much you spend, especially when you don't sell well, which is, I think, our main issue of not being able to spend more is we don't sell well. So the midfielder signing might end up being one that's a little bit more frugal or a little bit more of a clever signing. You guys know my number one option will continue to be Youssouf Fofana from Monaco. He is Champions League level, Premier League level, 25-year-old, 6/8, good passing, good carrier, good ball winner, duels, everything. Looked amazing at the Emirates last summer when we played against them in preseason. French international, 18 million from Monaco, and they owe us because we gave him Balogun for peanuts, So for me, that's the option. Now, Mikel Merino is not a player this is a player we've been linked to before. So I do think it's a historical link and a type of player that Arteta has been trying to get in the team. I'm not saying they're 100% the same, but the Fabian Ruiz, Locatelli, Mikel Merino, tall, kind of all kind of everything midfielder has been a a link that we've had. Those players have different strengths and weaknesses, but you know what I mean? Like, we've been linked to this type of player before, and we've been linked to this specific player before. Am I going to say that I know everything about him? Nah, I don't. Do I think that other teams are looking at him and maybe using this as a way to get other teams to like come to the forefront, like maybe Barcelona? Possibly. But, you know, there is a really reliable journalist that is talking about this for us, you know, so it's something to look at. Now, also looking at this person, his name is Tony Juan Marti. He's a reliable journalist out of Spain. Doing a little bit more digging because, child, I'm all up and through this because I'm like, he has it pinned on his profile, a report that he put out about Mikel Merino on June 5th, which is maybe it was 20 days ago, where Mikel Merino, the total midfielder for Hansi Flick, if there is fair play, Barcelona believes that his profile fits perfectly with Hansi's idea. His contract ends in 2025. That plays in his favor. We will have more details soon. So again, like I was saying before, doing a little bit more digging, he has earmarked Arteta and Arsenal as a place that wants him, but also has it pinned in his profile that this is somewhere like a player that Barcelona really likes. So we could be being used a little bit to like try to stir up some bullshit. I don't know, but he is reliable and he does know. So Arsenal may be interested in him, but maybe our interest is not as big as they're trying to make it seem, or Barcelona are really leading the race for this, because he tried to say that Arsenal are leading it as right now, but we saw the same thing with Zubamendi, that they were saying Arsenal are leading the race right now, but it's like they're going to figure out, like Barcelona are going to figure out a way without having to sell, without actually having to do anything like everyone else, how to get the players in that they want, because they always figure out a way, because people help them, you know, the powers that be always help them. So, you know, I could definitely see them, you know, getting Nico Williams, getting Mikel Merino, because those are the players that they want, despite not really having the money to get it done, you know. So that's something that I've been thinking about. But what are your guys' ideas about this? Like, I don't know how I really feel about it, because I want a midfielder, but I just don't, like, I'm not in the, I feel like sometimes Arsenal fans, like, if we're being linked with somebody and we're feeling some type of way about not having a lot of, you know, a lot of rumors, or we haven't done a lot of business, we're like, just sign anybody, like, just so I can get the feeling. But I'd rather not sign a midfielder than sign maybe this guy, because I'm not sure that he's actually a level raiser for us. But what do you guys think about it? What do you guys think about it? Aman says Fofana is right there for 20 million. I feel the same way. I feel he's just right there. Like, he's right there. Like, just get it done. Like, what's going on? Walter says Merino is a pretty versatile midfielder. If we can bag him and Fofana for under 60, I'd call it a win. But you already know, like, we're not going to get more than one midfielder of a similar-ish profile, or somebody that plays the same position. So there's no point in getting Mikel Merino and Fofana. It should be Fofana plus Eze, maybe Merino plus Eze. Like, I think actually getting Eze and Fofana for a combined, you know, let's say 80 million is a really good 80 million spent. You will have gotten in the profile of midfielder that allows us to get more physical, a little bit more robust in midfield. And then you also have gained a profile that makes you more creative. You've covered somebody that can play with or without Declan Rice. So somebody that can play deeper, somebody can play a little bit higher, an all-around midfielder that can do some of the Jorginho stuff without putting us at risk of being too flimsy in midfield, if that makes sense. And then could also, like, you know, you could envision a midfield of, let's just say, like, when we're playing in like a cup, you know, you could envision, like, let's say Fofana, Jorginho and Eze, or Eze, Nweri, and Fofana. You know, it gives you different options. To me, if we're going to buy two midfielders, it has to be that. It cannot be two midfielders that would play the same position. To me, it doesn't feel like the best use of funds, but 80 million for Fofana and Eze, I'd do that in a heartbeat. And then I'd sell, no offense, I'd sell ESR, maybe even see if there's anything for Fabio Vieira, and just move on. Because basically at the bare minimum, I would sell Partey and ESR and replace the two of them with Eze and Fofana, and then maybe even Fabio Vieira as well, and his minutes be replaced by Noweri. I just feel like midfield needs a shakeup. But Merino, if he were to come in, then no Fofana. I feel like it's either or. Merino was our player of the season under Rafa. He was homesick though, so returned to Spain. Another thing to think about, somebody that left, England to go back to Spain probably doesn't want to come back to England. Philip says Nico Williams on his future. I've just signed. Okay, so talking about Nico Williams again, saying it's a non-question, it's a non blah blah blah. I've seen people say that they're not going to go anywhere and end up going somewhere that very same summer. I get what you're saying, but we're going to continue to talk about Nico Williams until he's not an option for us anymore. Aman says Fofana and Eze is great. Samuel says, I don't know much of a player, but he's an 8 midfielder. That's exact player we need, but I don't feel nothing. I don't feel anything about the player. I get that. I get that for sure. So yeah, let's see. I'm all for smart signings. I'm really not it's not always for me about how much we spend on a player. I know for some Arsenal fans, it's we have to get a big signing. But if you can't get a big signing, you can't get a Bruno Guimaraes, sure. You can't spend the money like that. Get smart signings that actually do what we need. Don't go out there and get some bullshit. Get players that can actually fill the gaps in the squad. And there are some clever signings that you can do that can almost be more impactful than even a really expensive signing, because sometimes expensive signings are just that. They're just expensive. That doesn't mean it actually solves your problems, right? So Magzino says Eze is a left 8-10. He's not a winger. So yeah, and that's the thing is you can play 8s, or not 8s, but more creative players on the wing, but they're not going to give you what a natural winger would give you. And that's the only thing is getting Eze, for me, doesn't solve the winger conversation. That winger would still need to come in. And if bringing in Eze means that we don't get a winger, I would be a little bit more cautious about that signing, because it just doesn't solve that problem. Because we have a couple, right? We have maybe a striker problem. We don't have a clinical finisher in the team. We don't have somebody that can do what Martinelli and Saka can do on the wings. We probably don't have an option in midfield that allows us to become more creative, meaning Rice can sit in the 6 and we can play 2 more advanced midfielders. We don't really have somebody that we trust to do that role. Don't have somebody, we don't have maybe a left fullback that we feel confident in. We don't have a true, somebody like Gabriel and Saliba. So we have gaps in the squad. We're not going to be able to fill all of them. But Eze solves one of those, but is that the most important? Is it more important to get somebody to replace ESR/Fabio Vieira? Or is it more important to make sure that if Saka or Gabriel Martinelli were unable to play, we have somebody that can offer that off of the bench, That's where I'm kind of at with it, Let's see. Yo-Yo says, you made a point a while ago that we need to consolidate the squad and make it leaner and meaner like cities. That's not happening unless Edu pulls a finger out. But I have been saying that for a while. I do think the idea that City has 2 world-class squads is first of all, it's not real. That's not true. And it's just an excuse that Arsenal fans have kind of made up to make it feel well, it's okay that we're not really competing with them the way that we want to because they have all these great players. They don't. They have 16 to 18 players that Pep really trusts, and the players that come off of the bench are of a higher quality than the players we have coming off of the bench. So when we talk about having this great bench, we don't actually have the players that we think we do. We have too many question marks off of the bench. We have Trossard, who we trust, but probably should be lower down the pecking order. We have Jorginho that we trust, but should probably be lower down the pecking order. So you have those two, but they're not they still have they have some clear flaws that make them players that you probably want further down the list, right? But are still great players to have as your part of your squad. But Eddie, Reece, Fabio Vieira, Emil, they don't really solve our problems, or they're just bloat. They're pieces of good players, but not really you could actually replace 4 of them with 2 higher quality players and get so much more out of them. And that's why I feel like I want more quality. I don't want more players. So I'm okay with, some if we got rid of Fabio and Emil and brought in Eze, boom, we don't need anything else. Eze solves all of the problems that you have when you were talking about bringing in a more creative player in the midfield. He can do all the things that Emil and Fabio can do, but at a higher level. Boom, you've already consolidated and made yourself better. Between Partey and Jorginho, and let's keep El Neni out of the conversation. The 2 of them are very good players. In fact, at one point we were we have world-class CDM depth, but do we? Jorginho athletically is not somebody that you want playing a lot of minutes, but ended up having to play more because the guy that you wanted to play those minutes wasn't available. So if you were to get rid of the 2 of them, which I don't think we have to, but let's say we got rid of even just one of them and replaced them with somebody that's just better or more available, we're better off, So that's all I'm saying is, we really need to consolidate the squad. We have a lot of bloat. We have pieces of players, but not really. If you were to replace Zinchenko and Kiwior with 1 top quality player, we'd be so much better off. But the 2 of them just have too many question marks around them, and what they offer, and are they really at the level, is it just only good at these moments? Zinchenko's only good in these circumstances. Kiwior is hit and miss, so consolidate. We don't need 22 world-class players. We need 16 to 18 players that really are top quality. That's it, and so, yeah, I would want to move on. We have so much bloat, especially in midfield and up front. That's all I really have to say about that. I'm just spinning in circles now. Temadayo says, if we sell Partey and ESR, we should definitely get a 6-8 and a 8-10. Exactly. And that's where Eze and Fofana to me makes so much sense if you want to do a clever summer. It's not gonna, satisfy has to be a big signing. It's not going to satisfy them, but I would be fully satisfied sitting there with a grin on my face when we start preseason. If we went out there and we spent the money on Eze, we moved on Emil and maybe even Fabio Vieira and brought in Eze, brought Noweri up, because that's also a part of the equation, right? Because somebody has to go for Noweri to get those minutes. And if you're one of those people that are very loud on the timeline or on YouTube or whatever, talking about, oh my gosh, Cozy or Dewberry, oh my gosh, so-and-so, oh my gosh, Rule Walters, then you need to figure, there needs to be a space in the squad for these guys to play. And right now they don't exist. We've kept Reece too long. That's why Cozy or Dewberry's not around. We've kept maybe Emil a little bit too long. Noweri needs a spot. So Noweri and Eze replacing Fabio Vieira and Emil Smith-Rowe, I'm okay with that. I really don't, let's refresh, it's fine. But I really just want to see Arsenal go out there and get true quality. We don't need that many, we don't need to bring in 5-6 players. 2 players could change our lives, genuinely, if they're the right types of players. If that makes sense. Let's see. Aha says, Jess, what do you think about Eze in the left center mid? I'm a bit skeptical right now. I only see it working against the smaller teams at home or if we're chasing games. I feel like it depends. It depends on, do you think that the let me not say double tens, because people pretend like that's not a real thing when a woman says it, but let's say, 2 advanced midfielders and a DM. So instead of what we usually do, which is like two more like DMs, one playing more advanced in Odegaard, let's say it's one number 6 or one DM and two more advanced midfielders. It depends on why you think that doesn't work, the too advanced and Declan. Is it because the system doesn't allow for that to be a successful way of for us to play? Or is it because the players that we're putting in those positions aren't able to do the job? Because we've tried it a lot. We've tried it with Emile multiple times. We've tried it with Fabio Vieira. We've tried it with Trossard. We've tried it with Havertz. We've tried it. And it hasn't worked with really anybody we look better when we have two more defensive midfielders in there, And so is it the system doesn't allow for that, that puzzle of midfielders to work? Or is it that we just need a better left center mid that actually influences the game? Because what happens is when I think about the personalities of the three players in particular that we're talking about, let's say Fabio Vieira, Emile Smith-Rowe, and Kai Havertz, the players that we've tried to play in that position, all three of them are shy. None of them impose themselves in the game. None of them really get the ball and drive forward and make things happen. They don't have the same type of personality as Xhaka. They don't have the same personality as Rice. Players that are confident enough in their abilities to get on the ball and make shit happen. Do you think Eze is going to be like that? Do you think a Xavi Simons would be like that? Do you think a Musiala would be like that? Probably not. So is it the quality of the players and the personality of the players to get on the ball and actually make those things happen? Or is it that the system doesn't work with those types of players? I'm open to both. I feel like, if you put a more talented player in that position, it will work. It still may be a little bit where we're a little bit more exposed, but maybe we do get you're going to be more exposed no matter what. But the whole premise of having two more advanced midfielders is that even if you're more exposed and Declan has to do a little bit more defending, you get more bang for your buck. The risk is worth the reward. Right now, when we have two advanced midfielders, the risk does not the reward does not is not bigger than the risk. It just feels like everybody's just too timid. It's not really working, whatever. We struggle to remember the moments that Emile or Fabio or Kai made, right? And so, yeah, I think it depends, but I think we need that option. I 100% think we need that option. I've said it multiple times. Despite me feeling like a 6/8 is more important for this window, I admit that other profile, that 10-8, that Eze profile, that Xavi Simons profile, that still needs to come in at some stage, whether it's this summer or the next. So if you can get it done this summer with somebody like Eze that is Premier League proven, is old enough, we've seen him do it in the Premier League, then get it done. That doesn't mean we don't need the 6/8, but the market also dictates what you can do. So yeah. And I think we need that type of profile in the team. We do. We need it. Because the players that we're asking to do it, they don't have the personality. I think it's more that. I think to be that type of player in the center of midfield, you have to be like Rice and Odegaard, who are not afraid to make things happen. They're not afraid to get on the ball, to be big personalities on the pitch. Whoever we put in that other position doesn't have that same personality. Maybe a personality and talent issue more so than an actual systematic issue, but you can also just be somebody that's like, the system doesn't allow it. Fair enough, fair enough. Magzino says, Eze and Xavi are mavericks. They'll take the ball and make something. Josh KB says, I agree with what Jess said a few streams ago. It seems that we don't really buy other than Raya. Boy says Xavi Simons would freak this league. Okay. He's just a really good player. And that's the thing, is sometimes you just buy good players, it works. I don't want players where we have to I need to be convinced that they're good players. We should just, when they come in, we should just know. And I think at times, we just overcomplicate. Just buy talented players. It'll work, and I feel that way about Eze. It may not be perfect, that balance in midfield may be a little bit off, but I just feel like Eze would make things happen in midfield because he has the personality to make it happen. He believes in himself. He believes in his talent. He believes that he can score a goal, that he can create that moment, where I just feel like all those other players are questioning whether or not they have it. And so, yeah, it's tough, but I would definitely take Eze and Fofana as the midfield revamp. It's the revamp that we need. If we need to do it on a budget, then that's just, that's what we do. That's what we do. There's 130 of you guys watching. Make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel. Let's see. It's 10:30. When did we start? Okay. Oh no, it's 10:40. Okay, so it's an hour and 10 minutes. We're fine. We can keep going for a little bit longer. Saida, your comment hasn't came through here yet, I don't think. Let me see, because I want to put it on the screen, but no, I don't see it yet. It'll come up in a second, but I'll read it from here first. Saida says, all those midfielders in our squad you mentioned are low touch midfielders. That's probably why it doesn't work. And to me, that's a really good point, is that, but maybe Arteta, that's what he's looking for, but it just goes against what we had the season prior. And I think, the season prior when we had Partey, Odegaard, and Xhaka being such a high-touch midfielder, somebody that really wants to get involved, has a personality, worked a lot better than this ghosting into the box guy that we're trying to force. Just get a midfielder that wants to midfield. Get somebody that wants to make things happen. I think we'll be a lot better for it. It'll also lessen the stress on Declan Rice. I think this is a perfect time to address the England conundrum. You guys know I don't care about England like that. I'm not an England fan, but I want our boys to do good. And when somebody is saying that they're bad, I'm right there, in the corner, like a mom, that's what did you say about my child? You said what about my kid? Because it's and that's why I do always caveat everything with, if it's an Arsenal player, the criticism is going to be a lot louder. But England are not good at football, when they play in international tournaments. And I think that's been true for a while. And it's not just this group, and it's not Southgate. It's not just Southgate. They just have never really lived up to the expectation. But in this specific iteration of England, there's so much talent. And I just feel like it's so simple what you should do. And I feel like Southgate has a little bit of Arteta syndrome, where his is a little bit different. His is, I think, a response to wanting to be a lot more pragmatic, where I think Arteta's is a little bit of that, but also I want to be really clever and I want to overthink shit. I want to galaxy brain the fuck out of stuff, and I don't have to. But football can be simple sometimes. Put players in positions where they play best and just let it go. Stop trying to recreate the wheel. Stop trying to make things work that don't. I think part of me just feels like it's just that simple, genuinely, and with England, with Declan Rice, he struggled badly in their last match against Denmark, but he played with two players that aren't really midfielders. And I think Jude Bellingham is a number 10, but he's more of I'm going to have a free roll. And so the structure of the midfield was completely the foundation of it crumbled with Trent in there, because Trent is not a midfielder. Trent Alexander-Arnold is not a midfielder. He is a right back. He is a right back that can pick a pass. He is a right back that can pick a pass. You don't need to move him. And so Declan, I thought, had a very similar problem against Denmark that he had earlier on in the season with Arsenal, was that he needs somebody to help him with buildup. He needs a volume passer and a tempo controller to combine with him so he can do what he does best, which is winning the ball back, the pressing, the sweeping, those types of things. He can do the passing and all that kind of stuff, but he needs a volume passer next to him, somebody with a little bit more of that vision. He needs his Jorginho or his Partey. From an England standpoint, that's like a Wharton. It's right in front of your fucking face. It's not even hard to see that if you play a midfield of Bellingham, Wharton, and Declan Rice, and stop trying to shoehorn players into the team that are not good enough or don't play that position, and focus on balance, he would be so much better. It'd be so much better. Pick either Walker or Trent. Whoever doesn't play is on the bench. It should be Trent, but pick someone to play right back. Pick someone to complete the midfield that's an 8 that can actually pass the ball. Not Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher is the type of player that you put in there at the end of a game to close shit out. He's not somebody that starts for you. He is a nice profile to have, but he's never a starter at the top level. I stand on it. He's not. He's a good player. I like him. But you start Wharton or you start Merino. It's just that simple. Don't care if they're young. Don't care if they don't have experience. Good enough, you're old enough. If they went to the Euros, they got on the plane, they should be good enough to be on the pitch. And will you please, for the love of God, play Gordon on the left and stop it's just nonsense. But I just see very similar things with Southgate that I see with Mikel, is that they're trying to recreate the wheel and make things hard, make things more difficult than they need to be, to maybe appease players or make things happen or galaxy brain. But in reality, football is very simple. Put players in positions and let them do the roles that make them better, and put players around them that magnify their pros or what they do well, and don't magnify their flaws. I hate managers like Southgate. I hate managers like Ten Hag. Ten Hag is a really good example of somebody that will magnify your flaws more than what you do well, which is the reason why Casemiro looks like the worst player in the world, because it's like he magnifies what we all can see as football fans, like, well, he lost his legs. What does he do? He plays a non-midfield that's going to expose Casemiro. And so I think Southgate does things similarly. And I think Arteta has done that at times with certain players. And so with Declan Rice, I think, I know that it's just pick what position he's going to play. If you're not going to pick the specific position and you still want to be able to play him either 6 or 8, that's fine to a certain extent, but you have to find the right types of players to play around him. I think we did with Jorginho/Partey, but I think we could do better than that and uptick that a little bit more with a younger player that can play him like every single game. And then also, bring somebody in that could do the Emile stuff, that can allow Declan to sit in the 6 without it feeling like the midfield is falling apart, right? And so, yeah, I think, I get why Declan got a lot of criticism. I get why England in general is getting a lot of criticism, but if I don't see a balanced midfield and I see a team that's just completely coached like shit, it's really hard for me to look at the individuals. Really hard to look at the individuals. And I didn't ever really think that Declan was bad for us. I thought that he was not put in the right position to thrive at the beginning of the season. And you saw the best of him at the end when we had a balanced midfield. No balanced midfield means you're not playing good. You won't play good football. You just won't. Only good teams that can play good football without balance are teams that are just freaks of nature, like Real Madrid. You could throw them in any sort of thing. It doesn't matter. They'll just voodoo their way through it. It doesn't matter. Most teams require balance. They require balance, and they require profiles to combine together to make the right puzzle, right? It's just not that hard. It's just not that fucking hard. But I'm looking forward to doing the watch along tomorrow and seeing Conor Gallagher and Rice and Bellingham and wanting to fucking pluck my eyes out, because it's so hard to watch good players play terrible. It just is it's so painful. Even if I'm not an England fan, I cannot imagine being an England fan right now. By the way, the US, we played really good yesterday. We looked really good. So just wanted to say that. MV says 3 of the starting 11 are right backs. 30% of the starting lineup is made up of players who are a primary position. Exactly. Why? And here's the thing is, would it have not been smarter to, instead of trying to make Luke Shaw a thing, Luke Shaw in 2024 being a start, your only option at left back is insane. It really is. not bringing like Mitchell or somebody like that just seems so stupid. Genuinely. And I know Mitchell may not seem like he's on the level, but genuinely just having a good left back would be better than the nonsense with Trippier. Genuinely. Like, Foxy says Wharton would be perfect alongside Wright. Wharton is ready for the stage. MB says teams with pace don't need balance. Let's see. Marco says, just joining. Not sure if you guys talked about Gyokeres already. Any concerns with his knee injury surgery? We'll touch on that at the end. Burmy says Southgate is playing the name, not the position. I agree. I think, when you look at the primary positions that are the qualities that some of these players have, it's so obvious where to play them. And he has a lot of number 10s. And I think that's his main issue, is that teams that are afraid, managers that are afraid of disrupting their structure or their solidity and are more pragmatic by nature, don't like to play with number 10s because you lose a midfielder. So having Eze, having like Eze and Foden and Cole Palmer and Bellingham is problematic for Southgate. And so instead of bringing wingers, like bringing Jack Grealish and bringing, Rashford or Sterling, he didn't bring any of them, which I also understand that they've had poor seasons. So, it kind of makes sense that none of them came. But instead of bringing those profiles, he brought more number 10s, and he's trying to shoehorn them into wide positions. When you have Kane that's already really slow and is not going to run in behind, you need another pacey winger. Saka can't be the only player that can run in behind. So that's why Gordon is important, but he can't play Gordon there because that would mean that he would have to drop Foden. And after the season that Foden had, I do feel like Southgate is having a hard time dropping him. And it's like, do you want to win or do you want to kiss ass? Like, drop him. Like, it's like, I don't get it. Gerard says, like Emery putting Xhaka as DCM. Temadiao says, on a second thought, could we wait till next summer to try for Musiala rather than getting Eze now? Heard somewhat that Musiala could be the Rice kind of deal next summer. It really depends on if you think we're actually going to get him. If we have a really good chance of getting him, I would say it's worth waiting on Musiala. If you like the difference between Musiala and Rice is English coming from West Ham. Musiala he's English but German coming from Bayern. Everybody will be on red alert if he is available. So it's not going to be like fighting off Man City only. It's going to be fighting off Man City. It's going to be fighting off, everyone else in the Premier League. It's going to be fighting off Real Madrid. It's going to be fighting off of Barcelona. It's going to be fighting off of everyone. And so my only concern with waiting around for somebody that we may not be able to get is missing out on somebody that, may not be Musiala's level, but definitely would make us so much better. Eze is a quality player that, I don't know if I'd wait on Musiala and let him go to Spurs. By the way, so Lionide says Santi Cazorla played yesterday. His beloved Real Oviedo lost playoff. Oh no. It's about time for him to come home though. We're ready for you to become assistant. Because again, we should be hearing something about an assistant soon. I think they wanted Gabriela Heinze, like he was looked at for the position, and I think Santi Cazorla should be considered. So yeah. Carrie Parker, thank you so much for your super chat. Carrie Parker says Southgate is plain useless. Reminds me of Arteta. Well, I don't think Arteta is useless. But fair enough. I mean, I'm going to put your comment on the screen because you definitely paid for it, but I definitely disagree that Arteta is useless. I think Arteta is early on in his coaching career, and the very like stamps of failure that people are putting on somebody that's only managed he's going to be going into his 5th year is very harsh. Like, he's not useless. Southgate is useless though. And MV says Bayern won't sell Musiala. I think they're now starting to build around him and Kane. And, that's, again, like if we don't know 100% that we can get Musiala, then there's no point in missing out on Eze, but that's just me. But yeah, the last thing, the Gyokeres thing, that I saw something about Fabrizio Romano saying that, it's a concrete possibility that Arsenal can get Gyokeres. Arsenal reached out to know the conditions of the deal a few months ago. Now, that was a few months ago, and he's probably on the list, and he's somebody that I do think that Arsenal do like him. It depends on the fee. I really think it's the fee. I think it's the fee and whether or not Arsenal feel like it would be better to get a striker or a winger. I like Gyokeres. I would take him. I love him. I think he's great, and I think he'll bang. Like, I don't see him being somebody that is just good in the Portuguese league. I think even if he scored half of the goals that he scored in Portugal in the Premier League, he'd still be a 20 goal per season striker. He's coached by a really good coach, Almerim. So yeah, I really like him, and I would take him. I would. It just, the rumors around it just seem very fishy. This random Portuguese source saying that, we're doing the deal behind the scenes with George Mendes all in the shadows and shit. I'm just like, that just sounds very like weird. That just sounds like, I don't know. Is it agent talk? Like, what is it? I also saw something about Osimhen is Napoli are also willing to sell for less. Here's the thing about the Osimhen thing is if Arsenal are interested in Osimhen, they would be smart to make Napoli or let Napoli get desperate and then offer a lot less than what he's worth. Because if he wants to leave and they want to cash in on him, but there's only like one club into him, then they don't really hold a lot of power because they can't get they don't have a lot of interest. And so somebody that doesn't have a lot of interest is not going to be able to go for the top that they, were originally supposed to go for. So Osimhen, his fee is gone down. Gyokeres is a complete possibility or a concrete possibility. And I remember reading something the other day that if Arsenal were to go for a winger, they would go for Nico Williams. So that if makes me think that maybe they're still trying to decide whether or not they want to do the striker or the winger, because they could go in either direction. After watching Havertz yesterday in Fulkrug, I want the striker, but I also want the winger. So I still don't know where I stand with that. Riot's going to start for Spain today. I think it's a dead rubber. I think they're already through. But they're starting with Raya, Navas, Vivian, Laporte, Grimaldo, Zubimendi, Mikel Merino. So if you want to watch him, he's going to be playing for Spain today. Ferran Torres, Dani Olmo, Oyarzabal, and Joselu. And just like some last bits too here that Arsenal are going to play in the Emirates Cup. The Emirates Cup is back this summer. And August 7th at 6 p.m., Arsenal will face Bayer Leverkusen, which will be a really interesting game. And August 11th at 2 p.m., Arsenal will take on Lyon. And so those are two really good games to test where we are this summer going into the season. Christian Falk and a lot of German outlets are saying Arsenal are in the race for Guirassy. I think he's going Dortmund. I don't think we have to pay too much attention to that, but we're in the race, whatever that means. And there was one other thing I think I wanted to read out to you guys. Also, Antonio Nusa is a name that Crystal Palace have on the short list to replace Michael Olise. Clubs like Crystal Palace and, those types of clubs getting smarter about their recruitment is also going to hurt Arsenal when they try to sell the likes of Nketiah and Reece Nelson, because I also saw that West Ham are interested in Callum Wilson. And I was kind of counting on, Crystal Palace and West Ham to be options for Reece Nelson and Nketiah. But if they're smart and they recruit smarter in terms of like bringing in better players or bringing in younger players that they can develop and sell, it's going to be much harder to sell the likes of Reece Nelson and Nketiah, which is why it is so important to sell when the cards are in your favor, which was last summer. I will stand on it. We should have sold Eddie and Reece Nelson last summer when there was interest for Eddie for 30 million, when there was interest for Reece Nelson from Brighton for 15 million, because we may not get that now because clubs are smarter now. They know that it's the same thing with Tierney. Remember, we were like dead set on Newcastle. We're going to buy Tierney. People were afraid that if we gave him to Newcastle or we sold him to Newcastle, he would turn things around and be so good for them. Another team that's fighting for Champions League or is in Champions League, only for them to buy Lewis Hall, which a younger player, and Tierney to be here at Arsenal again. So it's so important to sell before it's obvious. It is painfully obvious that we should, like, Tierney and Nketiah and Reece Nelson should be gone already. They'll be hard to sell. It's not as obvious to sell Emil. This is the perfect summer to sell him. It's the perfect sell. It's the perfect summer. Also, GIFN, Get Italian Football Now, or New Network, or whatever the fuck, from Gazzetta, is saying that Juventus have cooled their interest in Riccardo Calafiori, the guy that everybody is like losing their fucking minds over all of a sudden. Jakub Kiwior is now a concrete target for Juventus. Juventus are broke. Whatever this is going to end up being a loan. It's kind of okay as long as whoever we bring in can step in for Jakub Kiwior at left back and center back, which I don't think is the worst thing, because as good as Kiwior did for them, like 8 games, there's something about him and Arteta and the way that Arteta only uses him when there's like nobody else makes me think that, not that he's a bad player or Arteta hates him, but it's not quite working out. It's not really like a perfect fit. And so it's better to just move them on quicker rather than and starting the process than letting him sit on our bench for another season, lose all interest. Like, a lot of Italian clubs still think Kiwior is good. One more year on our bench, they won't even be talking about him anymore. So if you're not feeling like 100% on Kiwi, loan him out or sell him now and bring somebody in that can do that job. So yeah, let's see. Josh KB says, the facts are Mikel and Southgate cannot win when the chips are down. They have the PR and ability to win games up to a point, only to let people down. Pep goes. It's not certain that Arteta wins. It's not certain that anybody wins, though. I feel like even if we got rid of Arteta, there's not a single manager that you can say for sure would win against Pep. Again, only 3 managers since Pep has been like the guy, have been able to beat him to a league title. 3. He's been in management for over 20 years, so I feel like some of this is just trying to loop Mikel into the Southgate conversation because people are upset about Mikel and they want him sacked. Doesn't really make sense. Again, nobody guarantees it. And there's nobody on the market right now as a manager that you would say 100% for a fact would beat Pep to a title. So it's not similar. It's not the same. Southgate is an international manager that's been around for a long time. That's really underperforming with a group of really good players. Arteta, you could actually argue, is doing a lot with not a lot. A lot of he's a really good, we have really good players, but as a lot of people have reiterated over and over again, do we have any special players? Do we have any world-class players? We have a young team that he at least has competing against Pep. So, trying to loop him in with Southgate feels like a cheap shot. As much as I try to be as honest as I want to be about Arteta, and I'm not somebody that doesn't question him, I feel like it's a little cheap to loop him in with Southgate when the situations are not the same at all. And Stone, that a builder, refused, I can't read the rest of your name, saying Ancelotti will win against Pep 100%. I said on the market, a manager that you can actually get. So again, is there anybody out there that you got, I ask this question all the time. Is there a manager that for sure can beat Pep to a title? Klopp did it once. Jose Mourinho did it once. And Conte did it once. Those are the only managers that have done it. So do you know for sure? On the market, not somebody that's already in a job that we know is not going to leave. And yes, there are managers that are not on the market. So again, I do feel like lumping him in is very harsh, considering Southgate has a lot of world-class talent to his disposal, and international football and club football are completely different. They're in 2 completely different seasons of their managerial career. Southgate's been around for a long time. Arteta has not. It's not similar. It's not really similar at all. I'll be really honest. It's like Boy says, it's disingenuous. And I do think that it's a cheap shot. It really is. So yeah, let's see. Damn, I'm hungry. Sorry guys, we might have to end this just because of like my stomach. I'm starving. Seriously. Let's see. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't like miss any like super chats or anything like that. I think I did get them all. Yeah, I think we got them all. So yeah, I think we got them all. But gotta catch them all. All right. If you guys know about Pokemon, then you'll get the reference, or I'm just lame. But yeah, let's see. Tomorrow, watch along for the England game. So make sure you guys sign up for that. The link is in the description. And then we'll do a show before that. Let me just check to just make sure. The Euros threw everything off because it was like you're trying to do shows at the same time that the Euros are on, and it's just so annoying to try to figure out. So let's just make sure. I'm starving. Yeah. I think tomorrow is going to be a little bit harder. Let's see. Yeah. So the games start at 9 my time, which is 5 your guys' time. So maybe we'll go tomorrow at 3 p.m. just to make sure there's nothing interfering. So yeah, tomorrow at 3 we'll do another show. Yeah. So but yeah, so make sure you guys like and subscribe and all that, because you guys know I love you guys to death. Get in the comments afterwards and let me know what you guys are thinking about what I said and what you guys were saying in the conversation. And make sure you guys can also remember, send me the video messages. You guys could just use the QR code right there. You guys can send your video messages. We did one the other day, and I actually had some people contact me and were asking like, how do they send them in? You can use the QR code. There's also a link in my description box to let you guys know how to send video messages in if you guys want. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.